In 1862, a Union soldier charged across a blood-soaked field, bayonet raised, heart pounding, running straight toward the one face he never expected to see.
His own brother, wearing a Confederate uniform, bleeding into the same soil they once played on as children. One of them wouldn't survive the next minute. How did an entire nation tear itself apart, family by family, brother by brother? To understand that, we need to go back to the beginning. Before a single shot was fired, America was already two countries living under one flag. The North built machines. The South built plantations. The Northern economy ran on factories, railroads, and immigrant labor. Machines drove profit. Wages paid the workers. Industry was the future. The South was a different world entirely. Vast cotton plantations stretched for miles, and those plantations ran on the forced labor of 4 million enslaved human beings. Cotton was king, and slavery was the engine that kept the kingdom running. This wasn't just a moral disagreement. It was an economic collision. When new territories opened in the West, one explosive question ignited everything. Would those new states allow slavery or ban it forever? Compromises were attempted. The Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850. Each one was a Band-Aid on a wound that kept getting deeper.
Then, in 1860, a tall, lanky lawyer from Illinois won the presidential election. His name was Abraham Lincoln, and the South refused to accept it.
He didn't even appear on the ballot in 10 southern states. For the South, his election wasn't politics. It was a declaration of war. He didn't even appear on the ballot in 10 southern states. For the South, his election wasn't politics. It was a declaration of war. They formed the Confederate States of America and elected Jefferson Davis as their president. They drew a line in the dirt. And then came Fort Sumter. April 12, 1861. Fort Sumter, Charleston Harbor. Confederate cannons lined the shore. A single American flag waved from the ramparts. Then the silence ended. The bombardment lasted 34 hours. 34 hours of relentless fire. When the smoke finally cleared, America was at war with itself. And this is where the title of this video stops being a metaphor. This war didn't just split a nation, it split families right down the middle. Senator Crittenden of Kentucky had 2 sons. One became a Union general. The other became a Confederate general. Same father, same table, 2 opposite flags. First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln had 4 brothers fighting for the Confederacy. 4! Imagine your own blood trying to destroy everything your husband built. In border states like Kentucky and Missouri, families were torn down the middle, neighbor against neighbor, father against son. This wasn't poetry. This was reality. Both sides thought the war would be quick. Northern newspapers predicted 90 days. Southern generals boasted one rebel was worth 10 Yankees. They were all catastrophically wrong. The first battle of Bull Run was supposed to end everything. Civilians actually brought picnic baskets to watch. Women in hoop skirts held parasols. Men sipped wine. They watched from a hillside as if war were a Sunday afternoon theater performance. Then the Union lines broke. Soldiers came flooding back in full retreat, right through the picnic. The war would not be quick, and it would not be clean. Shiloh. 23,000 casualties in 2 days. More American soldiers killed than in all previous American wars combined. And it was only the beginning. Antietam. The single bloodiest day in American history. Nearly 23,000 men killed, wounded, or missing in just 12 hours. Gettysburg. 3 days of nightmare. Over 50,000 soldiers destroyed. The tactics hadn't caught up to the technology. The result was mass slaughter. New rifled muskets were accurate at 300 yards, but generals still ordered old-fashioned charges across open fields. The bullets didn't care about bravery. The battles were only half the horror. Field hospitals overflowed with the wounded. Surgeons worked by lantern light. Amputation was the most common procedure. By 1863, Lincoln made a decision that transformed the war's entire meaning. On January 1st, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. All enslaved people in Confederate states were declared free. The war was no longer just about preserving the Union. It was now a war to end slavery. Nearly 18,000 black men enlisted in the Union Army. They fought with extraordinary bravery, knowing capture meant execution or re-enslavement. Meanwhile, the Confederacy was starving. The Union naval blockade choked off supplies. No cotton going out, no weapons coming in. The South was being strangled. Sherman cut a 60-mile-wide path of destruction through Georgia. His march to the sea didn't just defeat the South, it burned it to the ground. The Confederacy didn't just lose battles, it was being economically strangled to death. By 1865, Confederate soldiers were starving in the fields. On April 9, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee rode to a modest farmhouse in Virginia. He came to surrender. The war was over. Lee arrived in a pristine dress uniform. Grant showed up in a mud-spattered private's coat. The contrast said everything about how both armies spent 4 years. The cost was staggering. Approximately 620,000 soldiers dead. Some estimates push that number closer to 750,000, more than all other American wars combined. 2% of the entire population gone. In today's terms, that would mean losing nearly 7 million Americans. Let that number sink in. 5 days after Lee's surrender, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. The man who held the nation together didn't live to see it heal.
620,000 men died, not on foreign soil, but on their own farms, looking into their own families' faces. That's not just history, that's a warning.